Bom dia.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are here with the first SPCine Forum. We will begin our panel about training, bringing professional training closer to the market with a focus on diversity. My name is Victor, coordinator of the Observatory that is organizing the event. I would like to call to the stage Priscila Machado, our mediator. Tainá Xavier, representing FORUM. Janaína Oliveira, representing RIO. Sônia Santana, representing SPCine. And Ariel Nobre, representing Transmercado. Before I pass the floor to Priscilla, I would like to ask the audience to use the QR code to make questions to our guest speakers in the description of the link on YouTube. We also have a form for questions, and have a nice panel. Priscilla, you have the floor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's with great pleasure that I'm here, thanking SPCine for the invitation. It's very thrilling after such a long time going through such hard times, and these hard times are not over, to be able to be in this first Forum SPCine. It's great to have such a rich panel of members here, of guests, and I would like to describe myself. I'm a black woman. I have a brown shirt, black trousers, and black shoes, and black hair as well. And I'm going to begin talking about the challenges that we find when we talk about professional training, thinking about the market. And I think a lot about the challenges and strategies that we can take away from this discussion today, and how to follow SPCine on its trail and all its audiovisual, because no one walks alone. We have to all walk together. I think the weight of having only SPCine or anyone alone is difficult. Things have to be collective to work. And also thinking about these changes that are happening, and how I was looking at the panels. Every panel mentioned professional training and education, and in the skilled workers that are necessary, and how the market calls for this kind of action, and how we change all these concepts and how we deal with them. And I think that I'm going to pass the floor to our guest speakers, and I hope that you are able to send in questions for us, and so that we can think about the practical aspects, so that we can have a continuity to this forum, and that it be a forum that gives us many takeaways. And we usually discuss things on forums, and years later, when we return to other forums, we continue discussing the same themes, and we end up repeating our own errors. So to open our panel members, I'm going to pass the floor to Ariel, who's going to present himself, and he's going to talk about how it has been to work with professional training in order to service trans people, and also about the market and other positions that he has in the market. And the floor is yours, Ariel.
Thank you very much
for everyone that woke up early, got out of bed, and is here to listen to us. Question. I just present myself and go. Yes, you present yourself. Describe yourself, please. We also have this challenge of understanding that accessibility is something that we must be totally aware. Okay. Then you talk a bit about your process, your training, the market with focus on diversity. My name is Ariel Nobre. I have created the Transmercado, which is an initiative to train trans people to go into the world. I have short hair. I am white. I have a mustache that is not real, actually. I am wearing blue and red socks and a beautiful brown boot that imitates leather, but it's not leather because I am a vegan. Well, I am here representing the market, the trans market, which is an initiative that, to sum up, I look at trans people and I see and listen to them. I listen to myself as well to find out what is necessary for them to advance in their professional careers. I ended up attracting more trans people that work in audiovisual industry and now in publicity or advertisement as well. Officially, I had 2 editions of my training. The first one was at the beginning of 2020. That was very cool because it was at Sesc Santana, and it was an entrepreneurship, but due to the current situation, in the sense that if we don't have a job, we still have to work. So I focused on earning money or the earnings of these people. So a financial intelligence and how to deal with this issue, and digital communication that is also essential, especially for entrepreneurs. And then I call my peers in advertising. I called the people that strive for diversity in advertisement, people of color and also incredible women that struggle for diversity in Brazilian advertisement. And we had a full day in a learning journey. It was extremely good. It was just before the pandemic hit. We were teaching trans people how to invest, how to renegotiate their debts. This was an incredible process because no one knew what was about to happen. It was a great experience. It was an experience with 12 trans people. And during the pandemic, I gathered some money of my own and also with some partners. And I was able to donate 2 MacBooks and to make a task force for us to be able to sustain ourselves. And I focused in 2 black trans professionals for us to be able to face the pandemic that was at its beginning, for us to understand the possible paths we might take. In the midst of all of this, it was difficult to sell the trans market because everyone was quite at a loss, and for professional training to happen, you have to have a very stable basis, and vulnerability increased at that time, so I couldn't teach anything. I can't have attention of a person for a full hour that is vulnerable. If that person is worried about what he's going to eat for the next week, and giving them attention. And during this hour, it was a lot, but at that moment it was very intense. It is not only a basic infrastructure that we had to give, but also to mediate and how to talk to your parents, to your neighbors, for us to be able to have 30 minutes of your attention, for us to understand this cash flow, how much you're earning, how much you are spending, or how much you need to earn to be able to sustain your way of life. So I'm actually still struggling on how to present all of this, despite several meetings and lots of hard work. In the midst of the pandemic last year, specifically, I forget, I think it's 504-20 that associated LGBT with a bad influence, and in practice it was forbidden to have communication with sexual diversity. That was very bad for me, and since I am an advertiser, the market sees me as a diversity, as a diverse group, and how I present myself, or how I can be myself as well. And it was tough. But I called a friend, some market leaders, some CEOs, and I spoke to them. I said, I don't know who I can become after this in case this is approved, this law is approved. And despite being totally unconstitutional, unfortunately, I was not sure of which way it would go. And these leaders that were under pressure by the diverse part of the population, the question was, everyone was gathering to shoot the campaign, the June campaign, and the market was asking, what now? And I proposed to answer this question, what now? What came to me, what came to my mind is what is. The right of being is more urgent than the liberty or the freedom to make money. I wasn't able to cope with myself looking at some white leaders or cisgender leaders that were raising this flag of freedom of expression from the advertisement agencies in Brazil, because at the end of the day, things are not about advertisement. And so with other leaders, we founded the Observatory of Diversity in Advertisement, not only to create goals, but to overcome these goals in terms of talent retention. And to pass the floor to my guests, my panel member guests, I think that we have to look at who has the power in their hands. But this will only be effective if people like myself, and such as Priscilla, and such as Janaína, are able to handle to be in a set the way it is today, or the way the meetings for advertisement are, and of decisions that I participate have been participating for 7 years, and I'm the only trans person in these meetings. These are meetings for narrative decisions, so we have to we can't talk about increasing diversity without improving work conditions, because one thing is to work 12 hours, having a house, having a mother, having a father, and having basic conditions. Another thing is working 12 hours being a mother, or working 12 hours scared of making a mistake. So necessarily we have to change this structure. And in practice for tomorrow and onwards, we have to educate especially those who have been excluded from education. For example, the trans people. The evasion of schools is 80% on the trans population, but I rather think they are expelled from education. And also the mediation of conflicts. When I talk about the difference between state and government, where do they fit in between? I explain what is a client. I explain what a client is, what is an agency, what they are, and until we reach the point of where this person fits within this narrative. But to wrap up with a phrase that is, for us to be able to change this story, I'm talking about inequality. For us to change this story, we have to change the way that we tell this story. Putting black people, trans people, people with handicapped people, and women where the decisions are made in advertisement and in audiovisual in Brazil. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ariel. I believe the first challenge that Ariel mentions is to work narratives in which we are inserted. We are able to change those narratives. We must go beyond just being here. We can change the situation. We feel these things happening. I'm going to just leave you to think about it. Now I'm going to ask Ryo to describe herself and tell us a little bit about herself and her work. And the question I'm going to ask her is, what are the challenges and barriers to insert all kinds of people in audiovisual industry? Comparing to what Ariel has exposed, how do you see the challenges? That is, how to be practical. Good morning, everyone. I am Janaína. I work at RAIO. I'd like to thank SPCine for the invitation. This is a very important forum. This is the third day after 2 days of a lot of exchanging of ideas, of sharing experiences. It is a pleasure to be here talking about professional training, which is so important and has been so much discussed throughout these past 2 days. My name is Janaína Oliveira. I've been working with movie making since 2001. I am from Rio de Janeiro, Baixada Fluminense, which is the outskirts of the city of the city. I am a black female filmmaker, and I come from the fringes of the city. I remember when I first began this career, I was the only single woman there participating in that industry. And this made me feel very exposed, unprotected. As I said, audiovisual market has good intentions, but not always good practices. And RAIO, which is RAIO agency, is a company that does the curatorship of talents. That is, it welcomes all sorts of people, different genders, different races, different backgrounds. When we come to our talents, specifically the audiovisual industry, go to them and say, well, we do not have a black director. There's an article that I read last year. Certain producers said that we did not have in Brazil any Avas or Spike Lees in Brazil. And here is our colleague to show, and RAIO is there to look for Avas and Spikes in the Brazilian market. We go and look to see what the market is looking for to guarantee diversity. When diversity is present, to see also good practices to deal with this diversity. We know that this market has not been diverse and did not need to work with diversity. Today, they are facing this challenge, so to speak. So our mission is this. We bring professionals, we create methodology, we provide consultancy to companies, how to work with soft skills, and how do you do it in a proper way, how to welcome this diversity without reproducing micro-violences. Those who lived in the late 1990s and early 2000s know how violent the language towards this population was. It is a market that is adjusting and adapting to this new reality. RAIO agency, was created in 2020. It is part of the APAN, which is the Association of Professionals of the Black Audiovisual. It came about because there was a need to provide work and look for Black professionals. In order to meet this demand, we have a multidisciplinary team. We have teams that came from the audiovisual market. We have staff that already have experience in public policies and have a dialogue with the government and the civil society, and also staff that has the practice to create methodologies, to implement working methodologies at all levels. And we are struggling to include this diversity and how to work with this diversity. HIO has a wide-ranging scope. We want to bring diversity not as a product. It's not like today the market wants horror stories. Today the market wants to work with diversity. No, it's not that. Today the market faces the challenge of having to work with diversity. We bring diversity as a pillar by dialoguing in a transversal way. Diversity has to go through all the levels of the audiovisual industry. Those decision makers are the ones who have the final word, and the product that they decide on has to be diverse. We work with this diversity as a pillar by bringing this pillar to the industry so that production companies and others understand diversity as a fundamental pillar to guarantee business as a whole, because diversity is not only in the audiovisual industry, but also in the market. There are studies that show that companies that are diverse will increase their profitability. When we talk about diversity, we're talking about sold-out movie theaters. We are talking about companies that profit more, companies that work with diversity inside and outside of their spheres of production, achieved volumes both in numbers and people, which was incredible. To have diversity as a pillar, if you only think about profitability, it will be profitable for you. If we think in a more egalitarian society, this is also important for you. I have some notes here I'm going to look at now. A HIO agency tries to connect talents based on diversity, but it's not only race, but also sexuality, gender, regionality. And I was talking to my fellow panel members, and we were discussing about the advice that we have in our industry. Producers and big productions are still between the cities of São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. When these productions travel to the north or northeastern regions, there is an underuse of those professionals. They do not have contracts. They are not hired with legal contracts. By 2001, we did a work to redistribute wealth, and we had some difficulty to show that those people worked in the audiovisual industry because they did not have a contract, not even a statement that they participated in those productions. When we set up the structure of a PA, we never expected this to happen. So we had to have those processes done. So we have an industry that still does not respect those professionals from other regions, and we work towards this communication and dissemination of this methodology to create a diverse audiovisual industry, not only in this respect of race and gender. There's so much else we have to go forward. We have to rethink everything. It is very important to rethink. That's really crucial. Productions now have to be diverse. It is not acceptable that the audiovisual industry do not respect people and their professionals, whatever they are, and to get all these people together and to train, educate people on how to deal with the other and the need for diversity, which is fundamental and really important so that we move forward. We have stories that were not good for this group of people. And from now on, how do we go about? How do we educate ourselves to prevent errors from the past and that do not fit the audiovisual industry from now onwards? Some examples of actions that RAIO has carried out and how to work this diversity and equality and how to deal with talents. We have to create an industry that is there without reproducing racism, sexism, homophobia, and those so-called micro-violences. They are really subtle that sometimes go unnoticed. We've had a legal support for 2 years. One of PAM's associates, together with other 800 associates. All of us have access to legal advice. Almost 80% of claims that come to us regards racism and discrimination, both on sets and the way these professionals are treated all over Brazil. And also, we have a demand from companies and players. When they receive those claims and reports, they come to us to know how to deal with, how to avoid, and how to tackle these problems from now onwards. And based on this internal demand from our associates, as well as the audiovisual demands, we are creating a manual, anti-racism manual, involving all these cases, how to deal with, how to create methodologies, how to go about from here onwards, how to have teams that know how to deal with diversity on the set, and also fixed staff from production companies, what to do when this kind of situation emerges. We have our president who is here today, Rodrigo Antonio, who is the president of APAM. We want to release this manual by November this year during PAN's festival. This manual is going to be launched at that time. The idea is to transfer expertise. One does not have to be with us the whole time. We have to understand the situation, what happens in your work environment, to think methodologies and how to move forward. The manual is here to help all of us. RAIO agency has been expanding this repertoire of methodologies, not only with the manual, but also with everything that comes to us from players and production companies. We want to have methodologies that can be replicated with other teams in the market and can also be replicated. Sometimes it is something specific for one player, and together we want to create a methodology that will work for them and for everyone. We want to have a methodology that will work for each one of the production companies, for Amazon, Paramount, etc., each one with its own methodology. The market is demanded us or asked us to look for AVAs and spikes. We are going to find NAVA for you, and we work and find the profile of professional that you work for your production, and above all, to train those professionals in order to be part of this industry. We have our legal department that helps us in terms of contracts. Sometimes contracts tend to be a little complex, so we go look for professionals and follow up their development on the set. We intermediate this contact. This is our work, and we want to focus our professional training on bringing diversity inside the market and in the market to create methodologies so that this market to know how to deal with this diversity and how to create methodologies to re-educate ourselves, to live together, and also to potentialize our qualities. Diversity is power, diversity is profit, diversity is a lot of things. To know how to do it from now onwards is fundamental. Thank you. Thank you very much, Janaína. It's very good to hear you to talk about how to exchange our tools, how we have different experiences that we must share. Now I'm going to pass the floor to Tainá. I would ask Tainá to introduce herself to us, to describe herself, and tell us a little bit what challenges and how to get universities and students together with the market. You have this proximity with universities and the market. How to guarantee that this proximity be continuous, and how to work to do it in the long term. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I would like to thank SPCine for the invitation and congratulate for this first forum. My name is Tainá Xavier. I am a white female with long hair. I am wearing black shirt, blazer, and I use glasses. Currently, I am the financial director of FORCINE, which is Brazilian Film and Audiovisual Teaching Forum. I'm going to talk about my experience in FORCINE and the path that FORCINE has taken. It was created in 2020 in a very different context than audiovisual, and also different from the training of audiovisual context. And in 2020, in a meeting that happens at the University of São Paulo, 14 graduation courses for cinema they began from the third Congress of Brazilian movies, and they created this forum. In the 2 next years, they built their their statutes, and it's important for us to perceive how in the trajectory of this everything has transformed. We had cinema courses, and then they went from film to video. My course was of social communication with specialization in cinema. Today, the cinema in this institution has 2 courses. So in these 22 years of movement of creation of FORCINE, much has changed, and FORCINE has been aware, and it is an association of schools, not of people. So this is also important within our constitution. To follow these changes, FORCINE has been modifying itself. One of the most recent modifications was that we are open to other training spaces beyond the graduation courses. So today we have 32 schools associated. We have graduation courses and technical courses for technical and graduation courses, and we understand that the education in cinema can have a beginning but doesn't have an end date, and we understand that this market demands profiles that are very diverse. We still have graduation courses, and what do we do with all of this? We see ourselves as a space for connections, for intercommunication. We have annual congresses where we give space, which is very rare in the academia, to talk about teaching methods, teaching matrices, what are the demands from the market, what are the practices or skills that are necessary. And this has been a space that has been opened by us, and through these teaching exchange we have built the Teachers League that has its own autonomy to organize events and to build or to make productions. The production network mobilized itself as of the pandemic, and also the unions that were happening, the discussions that were happening in unions and associations for us to understand the specificities of these environments. So this Teachers League or Teachers Network was very important. We also have communication with governmental entities, with audiovisual companies, with different links in the chain, because we understand that in our space for teaching, we are giving support for talent in different skills. FORCINE, in its intercommunication with the Ministry of Communication, had the directives for the movie theaters, and which gives us a path, despite the differences of the proposals. But the graduation courses have this document, and it brings this teaching to several spaces. So we work together with ASSOCINE, which is research in cinema in Brazil. We are a member of SOCICOM, which is a member of Scientific Research Institute. So we participate on the choice of the counselors of CNPq. We have association with other schools and also FEISAL, but we also have some events with the Federation of Portuguese Schools and also from European schools. with Abravi, with APAN, and we have had many moments in which we came together with several agents. We have been looking for the need of spreading the word of diversity, and as of the participation of Malu Andrade in FAAP in 2016. In our Congress in 2019 in Santa Catarina, we had the participation of Ivis Ferreira representing APAN, and since then we have been placing the theme of diversity as something that is essential, and we propose ourselves to map the schools for us to be able to create a diagnosis. Which are these schools? How are these schools composed from the point of view of diversity, and how are these spaces presented to these people that transit through these courses? We have mapped courses and teachers. This research is available on the forcine.org website. Of course, there's not much surprise when we do these studies. We have seen that we have a majority of teachers who are white, cisgender men. We allocate by different areas of teaching skills, and we see that some standards of market repeat themselves. So photography, for example, or cinematography has an occupation of women. So this also makes us think how the teaching spaces are paths or ways to insert professionals into the market that perhaps don't see the market as being so open to them. And recently, and at the end of last year, we collected data from students, and I brought here some data to make a comparison, and we are going to release this mapping in our next Congress that must be in October. We want to keep this communication in these spaces, and we perceive that there is a presence of students, of white students, heavily majority of white students. And this was a survey made by 4 individual students, and each one of them spontaneously would fill in a questionnaire. We had 466 questionnaires answered by schools all over Brazil, and a percentage of 61.2% of white people, 13.7% black people, and 34.7% of black people. We have a participation of cis women that is higher of cis men. And this research reflects the presence of women in these study spaces and also graduate courses. We had a percentage of people that consider themselves non-binary, and we have a very low percentage of handicap. 91% said that they are not handicapped, and we want to understand and include in this research areas of interest, and then we want to make a crossing of an overlapping of all these statistics. The students were able to choose more than one area. So 68% of the answers were for directors, others for script and script writing, and 41.8% for art director. And there's a figure which is 34.5%, which are interested in research. So thinking about what FORCINE has in terms of training spaces and what the needs have been, thinking about the training and the market, what are the needs of the market, and identify the demands for the skills. Perhaps these spaces can also be partners for collecting of data. They can be partners for joint projects for research. For example, when I listen to Heine saying human resources in audiovisual and cinema, I am very happy to hear this, because we have to qualify ourselves, be skilled. I have followed some of the panels here during these 3 days, and this arose in several contexts. But we have to understand what skills are necessary for what part of the market, for which kind of social group are we talking about, and perhaps these spaces can help, because there is no timing for the market. The market needs answers on the short, medium, and long run, but it is constantly updating its demands. So we have to think about these partnerships and cooperations, and the production or the collection and release of data has been something essential for FORCINE. Other issues that we perceived in the first phase and that were confirmed in the second phase, we have fortunately instruments or vectors of insertion, all the quota policies, and this insertion fortunately has been creating a demand for diversity, aesthetic diversity, and the demand for the diversity of the people who are working with the professional trainings. When we have a majority of white cis professionals or teachers, these are places that are questioning the diversification. And FORCINE has also sought to work with references. We have had the proposal of women who are pioneer in the audiovisual industry. We have a content hub where we exchange references and ideas, and we have had workshops as well to be able to give support of this aesthetic training, and we also need these spaces to call in, and these spaces have to be less violent, they have to be inclusive, but these spaces also have to think about students, not only by the quotas policies, but also we need teachers. So for the private institutions, for example, these policies have to be rethought in the boards of the institutions. And for the public institutions, we have instruments, legal instruments for spots for public spaces. And at the same time, we have to think about policies to retain these talents. It's no use having people that have entered due to quotas, but he doesn't have a home to live because he's going to have to deal with making a living instead of studying. So how will he be able to study if he is not able to have the basic necessities taken care of? So it's no use just throwing the person in there and he has to make his way. We have to turn these spaces that will take care of these people and retain these people. And many times we need this interconnection with the public entities. We need projects and long-term policies. Sometimes a grant or a call for bid, and that doesn't go into be in perpetuity. So what to do with these figures? How to think about retaining these students in schools? And we want to create a document, and we want to highlight that all this mapping has been done within the executive directory of FORCINE, together with a consultative board of several entities. So all these questionnaires were divided with people of several entities, associations, to be able to understand if these were the questions that would have to be answered. And once again, after we release this data, we're going to open a dialogue to think about directives so as to work with diversity within the audiovisual courses. So that's what I had to say to begin with. And I don't know if we already have proposals that are ready, but I think how we're going to work from here on is to follow on with the dialogues and to support our connections, understand how policies and programs can stimulate the professionalization and the dialogue between these instances, and we can have as public policies the training itself as a focus of the policies, because it is at the basis of the sectorial funds. And these initiatives have to be discussed with the training centers, and they have to be built effectively. And also how we can have the training that is for the long run. Thank you very much, Priscila. Thank you very much, Tainá. Yes, training is the structure that you mentioned is what has led the discussions during these 3 days. I'm going to pass now the floor to Sonia, but I'd like to remind you that we have a QR code that you can send questions for the panel, and there's also a link on the YouTube channels for you to send in your questions. And Sonia, I would like to listen to you. Please present yourself and describe yourself to us and tell us how to sustain the demand for technical and professional skills, but also how can we ensure a follow-up of this market that we have that in fact, will include diversity? How can we create parameters or measures for us to be able to work with this? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for providing the space for conversations or exchange of experiences. My name is Sonia Santana. I'm president of SPCine, which is the union that incorporates the audiovisual industry workers, and it is the union that will accommodate all the diversity that will be coming in. I am director of production. I have worked in different areas in the market, and all this gave me a wide vision of our activity. From the onset, we have tried to organize the sets. When we came, there was no data. Without data, there is no public policies. There is no establishment of new visions and views. We do need data. In other words, we have been working for the regularization of DRT and also working with technicians, trying to change the image unions have. Some consider us enemies. We're not enemies, much to the contrary. As we help to regulate market, we establish professional relations. We are talking here about an industry. This industry needs to be professional in order to be considered a de facto industry and a real industry. We were undergoing this process with speeches, seminars. We have changed GRT courses, which is mandatory. All of those who come out of this skilling or skill training sessions will do it through the unions and different courses. We are 3 unions in Brazil, Ensino in Brazil, SPCine in Santa Catarina, and 1 in São Paulo. We had a lot going on, training technical associations of professionals, and I usually tell people the market is critical of those associations, but they bring us a new reality for the set. We need to understand how each working space stands. These are organic organizations. They're part of the union and bring us a snapshot of what happens on the day-to-day on the set. All of a sudden, there was a pandemic, and with it, a demand for new professionals. What to do it when we were trying to survive a virus and a non-government. It was very difficult to conciliate those two moments, so we have to catch up now. We're talking and sharing a lot of information, but I want to focus on qualification, which is to qualify professionals that are already working in the market. So to create takes time. Cinema is time, observation, study. Audiovisual demands a lot of studying. That's why it's rich and diverse. We have a major challenge ahead to qualify new professionals, to create insertion processes, and at the same time, we need to include diversity, which is one of our main pillars. In order to have a gender parity inside the sets, we need this qualification. We need to qualify professionals at all the spectrum so that they are effective. And with this, prejudice, stigmas are eliminated. If you're not born with a silver spoon in your mouth, you are sometimes put aside. So the role of the union is to put together all these professionals, to qualify them, and at the same time give them conditions to enter the market. Along this time, we have created several ways to help them enter the audiovisual market. We have established this so-called a entrant professional, which is a beginner. They get into this category and they choose one segment. For example, I want the area of cinematography or art direction. They go through several different sectors until they have a 3-year minimum time in order to receive his diploma, DRT. And they'll be guided through this course in which they are taught about work commitment, about ethics, about being there. We are still talking about cinema and audiovisual because there is still analogical processes. We still have labs that still use photographs and films. And we have to look at very cautiously to these new regulated and skilled professionals. We are living a big bubble. We have a big demand, a pent-up demand, where we have specifically the series, which have been consuming a lot of labor. Usually, series have 2 full teams, which reduces the number of professionals that are qualified in the market. We have to know how long will this bubble live, what guarantees we have in the qualification of professionals, how to retain those professionals. We are not interested in training professionals and then leave them in a condition of low salaries and not making the most of their talents, and sometimes not looked at as they should. Everybody needs to be qualified, not only workers. We do need a full qualified professionals. We want professionals that respect collective bargaining, to have they are hired by contracts. People need to work in a regular way. And of course, the industry has rules that must be respected. Otherwise, it will not be an industry that generates data and thus correct public policies. When I talk about qualifications, we need to have managers. We need to have managers that need to understand that skilled workers will cost a little bit more, but we have to know what those skilled professionals mean in the set. They mean celerities, assertive actions. They mean a lot of commitment and, most of all, knowledge. A skilled professional is putting all their knowledge on the service of that project, and we see that on the screen. When we get into the set, you feel the environment. You know the results that we'll have on the screen. So skilled and protected professionals is a visiting card of that production company. That same company will be able to be part of an industry. The audiovisual industry does not discuss work label, working conditions. They don't discuss extra time payment. And even with well-planned work, extra time will happen. Okay, let's pay it, the word extra time. We don't want it to be a habit, because we want more professionals to get into the market and not working just to generate extra hours, being exhausted, something that we have seen happening lately. In this process of modernization, which SPCine proposes, during the pandemic, we had to talk with different entities and mainly with technical associations that are under SPCine umbrella. And then we decided to start up a protocol which is very rigid and efficient. With this protocol, we proved, and it has been possible, to have a recovery with low loss of human talents. So we prepared ourselves, and those associations guaranteed not only a highly scientific professionals, we have prepared a lot to have this protocol very efficient, and that is why this union of all sectors has been very powerful. When professionals show their faces to a hiring company, many times they are put aside if what they say does not meet the expectations of production companies. So these professionals were very brave. We protected them, we ensured their protection where they could carry out this quality project. And up to now, they work with a lot of working safety conditions. A professional within a union is very concerned about their skills. They want to create a hierarchy or career plan. They have to know where do you want to go and how do you want to move around that space. And we also fought for a fair working conditions. What if we are doing an online courses? We need to read. By reading, we become instructed, and that will lead us to other reflections. So let's all start reading. Let's promote a Portuguese course in the Union, focusing on text reading comprehension. And we also want to let them know how to read and understand a contract. We sometimes deliver our souls or give our souls to a company. The pandemic allowed us the possibility of getting people who were far apart together, and by doing this, we shared important experiences. And most importantly, an awareness of our industry. We are constantly attacked, mostly unions. There is a movement to dismantle public policies, dismantle unions, and this has been very cruel to our sector. Unlike everybody mentioned, we have been able to get congressmen and women together to defend audiovisual. We have been able to show first that the audiovisual industry is highly competitive and highly profitable for the state, for the country, for the image we project. It is time we improve our image. Our image is really, really low. And the union image is very poor currently. It's a lot to cover, as you can tell. We need to preserve the working journeys. We carried out a big National Assembly so that we could get the unions together. The lack of professionals is prompting a lack of professionals, and this provoke shock waves in different teams. And we're trying to find a way to coexist so that the particularities of each region is touched. We have a Uniglobal, which put together audiovisual unions all over the world. We did a work recently, and we did this research throughout Latin America, trying to understand violence against gender, harassment inside the work environment. 98% of people either suffered sexual harassment or know about it. How to protect those people that we want to put on the set with dignity and respect. I understand we need to qualify them. And why is that? Because it cannot be just a spur of the moment diversity. It needs to be long-term. It needs to have a perspective in terms of conquering a space of work and respect. We're all looking for this safety and security. In the process of deconstructing conversations that we used to have, and they were habitual in the sector, there is this kind of language that was not offensive, and now it is considered offensive because of different reasons. Well, this is what I had to say. Our union is working a lot to get up to date and to work together with the worker and to defend work. There's no worker without work. We want more and more to help qualify our work environments. We cannot just cross our arms and wait for everything to happen magically, just like in a movie. We have to roll up our sleeves and work. We are deeply committed with SPCine in the search for these professionals. We are part of the board of SPCine, and we're very proud of it. And we have seen this evolution, the view of SPCine and the Film Commission, and we are fighting for their permanent existence in the sector. And I believe that we are going on to new political moments where all this is going to be preserved. Well, thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Okay, so this round that we're going to start now, the intent is to start thinking from the speeches that we've heard, how we can bring up proposals for long, medium, and short term, and how we can build this together with SPCine and other institutions. So I'd like to listen to you talking about this aspect. What practical actions can be brought up on the short, mid, and long term from the discussion that we have had here? And as you have followed during the other days, you can also reflect on what has been discussed. Ariel, can we start with you? I got really involved in your speech, and I got a little lost, but I'm going to try. Thank you very much for your services for the audiovisual industry. Thank you very much. Were you ecstatic as I was? And I would like to put the Observatory of Diversity at the service of SPCine and SPCine. And well, practically we need the presence of SPCine and the state, not only in formulating the goals, but also in its fiscalization and the advertisement industry. I think this is the first approximation. We are closing legal processes. As Ancini, we are association as a company from advertisement companies. And we started as already feeling this pain, the issue of Alesp, and I forgot to mention, led by Erika Marongini, state deputy. And we had some time to do the observatory, and now we need this approximation with the state. In these qualifications, I think that I'm tending towards SPCine in terms of professional training, to rise up to advertisement, to take this debate of qualification. I think the work of SPCine is going to help us a lot with this, and especially for us to depressurize the market. I'm talking about better working conditions, working hours, and things that seem simple, but I'd like to say that in Brazil, 50% of the Brazilians don't have what to eat every day, practically. And I see that there is a diversity in terms of basic necessities. I see that black people are not lactose intolerant. Only CEOs are lactose intolerant. My grandma used to say that happiness comes from the gut. And if there is no training or education or any work if we don't have food safety. We're going to have to go back to speaking about this and talking about this in a way that is more modern, so to speak. We have gone through several issues in the field in agribusiness that are now on the table, and I see people suffering in regards to lactose intolerance for gluten, which are the most common. So I see this grow, and also to embed in this information, and this will improve things on the short run. This is the soft skills is what I'm most requested for, and how to communicate, because it's not only communicate, it's communicate with people that make more money than you. So how to organize yourselves, and who are the people that can help you, the associations that can help you, or the public services that can aid you immediately. So to embed this into the skill set is something that will improve things immediately. And just wrap up. So I think, and also the decision makings as well, the education of the decision makers. Thank you very much. Janaína, I'm going to ask each one of you to try to be brief, 3 minutes tops, because we still have some questions and we are running out of time. The idea is to bring practical ideas. What would you like to see happening in the short and midterm? What would you like to reflect upon as the next steps? Well, first of all, I'd like to apologize because I didn't describe myself. And I am a black woman. I have trances in my hair. I'm wearing black, wearing brown boots, and a yellow collar, or yellow necklace, sorry. I think what SPCine has done, and has done very well, and I think for the government and companies is to put up the diversity and especially the equity in dealing with diversity, because it's not only including black people, trans people. If you don't understand equity, as an example, Rio de Janeiro, if you have a set that's going to take a month and people have to be there at 6 in the morning, and you have people that live in the favelas, you have to take them out of the favelas for a month so that they can reach the set at the right time, because if they're not out of the favelas and there's a shootout or there's a strike or a flooding, you cannot go without that person. You cannot have them not show up. Not everyone lives in the good parts of Rio de Janeiro. So equity within diversity is important. To bring this as a pillar and a transversal pillar in the public policies is what we demand, and it's important for us to mention this and see this in a way, because when you read the bidding notices, 30 or 40% for the people from the northeastern part of the company is absurd, but it's not absurd. If you have 30% for the southeastern part of Brazil, we have to understand this as a pillar, as something that is essential. And what I ask for is the equity within these diversity processes, to understand that people are diversity, people are different, they have different needs. You're not dealing with people the same as you, who are exactly the same as you, and how to bring this as a transversal action within your organizations and your daily lives. This is essential for us to implement from now on. That would be it. Thank you very much. Yes, this goes with what Sonia has mentioned. We have to look at the skills of this employee. The employee still have the same, the trend is to follow on the same aspects that he has. Tainá, also, I would like to hear your opinion of what we what can be done in the short, mid, and long terms. Thank you. I think Janaína's speech was perfect in general. We have to make this process a horizontal one. They have to be in all the processes of public entities, private entities. How to make this organic, this transit of diversity, and this understanding that diversity is difference. Everything that is very obvious for someone is not that obvious for another. So how to deal with it in an appropriate way. And thinking about the professional training regarding research, I think that this can be a great contribution from our spaces. Remember that research always also demands funds to have a continuous mapping, and all the mapping from the FORCINE is a voluntary work. The people who have done this were teachers and students that volunteered for this. There are several other demands on our daily lives from the academic world that are a part of what our work demands from us. And for us to be able to systematically maintain the continuity, and this can be a demand from public agents, how to keep the continuity of this mapping. When we, for example, stopped mapping the teams of SPCine audiovisual teams, the participation of women and gender and race were discontinued. And someone mentioned this in a panel here of how we live today in a vigilant state, total vigilant state of our actions through this. The data collection is being done in real time. If I give a like or a dislike, how much of the video I've watched, this is being collected all the time to sell products. On the other hand, we have the difficulty of maintaining research projects. We saw the reduction of funding from the CNPq and the Education Ministry. We need money. We need the perception of the importance of collecting data and the release of data, because we have to verify the effectiveness of these initiatives. Without data, there is no public policy. So I would like to stand for what FORCINE struggles for. And for example, every call for bid ends up being a data collection. When people enroll a project for a bidding, why not release the data that have been collected? We received X enrollments, the profiles are these. I think creating this culture of following up on this data for us to be able to see the effectiveness of these policies that are being created, and also how to think about stimuli that can come from the public policies to these connections between training spaces, between entities that are people who are thinking about entering the market, and how to think about these stimuli that can be public policies for the private sector to think about equity. Of course, if the production company looks at their balance sheet, they're working with a bid that has been stuck for I'm going to ask you to wrap up. Yes, there's a lot of things. Sorry, we need more meetings such as this one. So Sonia, I'm going to ask you for your last impressions. Sonia, sorry. I'd just like to hear how you would like to reflect upon this meeting, and what strategies we can have for the short, mid, and long term, so that we can follow up with all these proposals. I'm going to describe myself. I'm a Latin American woman with very little money in my pocket. I'm wearing black and white. Black is the color of cinema, and I wear glasses as well. As a union, we have the duty of protecting workers, whichever their from wherever they come. We have to try to preserve these professionals, and I insist we have to qualify and give skills to these people that are on the market, and also having the answers if we're going through a bubble, if this bubble can simply burst all of a sudden. What are the guarantees to prepare people? This can't be a reason to pay lower wages. I think that we have to ensure the proper payment of these people. We have to change because we have several professionals that are being underused, and that they can contribute a lot in training new professionals and the professionals that are on set. There's so much to be corrected. And we have a lot of difficulty in advertisement. We have radio and television that cannot read a script, for example. So taking a technical team to a several hours of work, it's very difficult to put restraints which are necessary. We like to work. We don't want to die working, and much less for a publicity film. So this is a criticism to the advertisement industry. They have to be more humane towards the professionals, respect diversity, and not only using them just to fulfill a quota, and be certain of this choice of this professional. And it's up to the unions and associations to maintain the skills of these professionals. Constant skilling, constant training, because cinemas change on a daily basis. Not only on the line, we need a capacitation. You have seen the softwares that guide the production assistants and do the filming planning, the shooting planning. So we have to have the possibility of having these equipment and software for the market, so that and be fast with this, and for us to have a decent work within the set, there has to be a decent pre-production phase. If you don't have money, you have to have terms. So we have faced things without money and without terms. So we're having cases of burnout, which is a violence within the set. So we have as challenges to qualify and look at, have this humane thinking within the set, and not only looking at figures. The figures follow, but the human being is up front, and that would be it. Thank you, Sonia. I have some questions from the audience so that we can wrap up this panel. There is a question for Tainá. I'd like to know how FORCINE responds to stereotypes that are no longer sustainable. As is said, at least during the last 15 years, the universities have changed, and many students are in the audiovisual industry doing great work, winning prizes nationally and internationally. How FORCINE works to release the work that is a center of experimentation that are so important to oxygenate the market. So this is a question that came up, and there's another one that will require comments from all of you, which is how does your institution partner with federal and state university? So this goes for Ariel, Sonia, Janaína, and Tainá. Well, that's a great question. And I think we fortunately are going through times that we are deconstructing this academia as a marble palace. And I've seen where I've been a teacher, the courses of cinema are very pertaining to the academia. So there's a certain pedagogy of the collective work in cinema that the courses, to some degree, at least the ones that I have gotten to know, makes these spaces within the universities to be a little bit different. They create and foster the collective work. They understand the need for visibility and the need for experimentation. It seems to me that the college courses have this interest. Not everyone has to go through college. Actually, most of the professionals don't have a college of audiovisual and cinema. So why do this? What does this space what can this space offer? It can offer exactly the experimentations that are not possible in the market. So if you're working, you cannot make an error. You cannot experiment, because if it doesn't work, it is a loss. So the spaces, training spaces, have this kind of characteristic, which is interesting because it can generate new paradigms. For example, what we have seen is that many filmmakers that come from these courses present in festivals in Brazil and abroad other ways of working, of storytelling, bringing different characters. And I go back to diversity. The entrance of quota students, when I graduated from the University of São Paulo, it was a team of 15 people, and I had only one colored friend. And through SISU, we have people in a classroom. I had students from every regions of Brazil and from several countries in Latin America. And the cultural richness, the cultural of this dialogue and these references, these ways of thinking that were found in these spaces were huge. And it can be a lighthouse for narratives, and it can point to other ways for us to think about ourselves, because we have to remember that the creative industry is an industry. It yields cultural assets besides money. It constructs the image of who we are. So we also have to understand these cultural assets being produced in the films that we do, the series that we do, who is being seen on that screen. And especially the public schools, they are open. And in fact, we deal with a cauldron that is extremely rich, and how to keep these people there. A person that goes from the northern part of the city to study in the southern part of the city, it needs to be supported by public policies. The state has to understand that they must invest so that these people are able to conclude their courses and that they can reach the visibility in the market. We cannot lose this investment because the state invested in a system of NA, which is a national system that makes it possible for the students. To lose that student in the middle of the way is losing public resources. Everything that is done within the universities, we have projects that gives our researchers and they also have projects, and we have to understand that every public resource and everything that is done within these spaces has to have a return to society. So thinking about my film that has a bidding proposal, I have a commitment to my country. How am I going to give back to these people that paid their taxes, that generated these resources for us, this funding for us? When I'm dealing with what is public, I have to understand that I have to give back as well. I don't know if I don't remember the second question. Let us have be more brief, a minute each. Please answer this last question, which is your institutions, how do they consider their cooperation with public institutions? Okay, just 1 minute for each and synthesize the most you can.
Well, FSPCine is born out of initiatives from public and private universities. In the 14 courses that we provide, we also have private institutions with us. We are very sensitive to questions relating public policies for education at large. Thank you, Janaína. Well, Raio agency needs researchers. That's why we carry out this dialogue, ongoing dialogue, to include market research in order to help us into the establishment of our guide anti-racism, so that we have more data with ample and wide-ranging types of sources. Help with of public universities is fundamental to our work. Sonia, while union, our relationship with universities is, in a nutshell, what does a union do and what is the purpose of a union? It is important students understand that it's important to participate in the unions and know their rights as well as their duties. As we have skilled professionals, we want to welcome them, and by doing this, we are going to deliver good quality services. It is a function of the unions not only towards universities and public spaces, but also the so-called free courses. They train people in much faster pace, and it is up to unions to help those professionals that are leaving those courses to guarantee and ensure them access to new positions and jobs. Ariel? Well, the Observatory of Diversity establishes goals. Our sector of hiring and retention, we call it affirmative and educational action. We are still in the onset, but at the same time looking for partnerships for education in order to set and establish our goals. Well, I'd like to thank each one of our panel members. Thank you, SPCine, for this wonderful panel. Thank you for your speeches and ideas. Sonia has her final remarks. Well, the audiovisual industry is again under serious threat. We have to mobilize ourselves so that SPCine be not paralyzed and politicized and the sector stalled. We've reached a moment of choices. We have to find a new president, a new Congress. It is not enough to find or to choose or elect a president that has ensured us the support to arts, culture, and audiovisual, but we also have to elect a Congress that can support those ideas and those policies. Congress is fundamental to help the president to negotiate. We have to be in politics and we have to choose a place, and the time is now. There's a manifesto, the ongoing manifesto about the new director of SPCine that does not correspond to a skilled or professional skills or technical skills. This is not what we want or need for our cinema. So please vote and vote well. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank each and every one of you attending this panel, and thank you all. Thank you, Priscilla, and thank you all. Before wrapping up, as in all other panels, we are offering room for third sector companies that want to participate audiovisual industry. We are going to have now two final messages from two important guests. Let's hear the first one. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Well, we are going to be very, very brief. I'd like to greet everyone here on the panel. Thank you for this debate. This is very important that the audiovisual sector and industry be together and establishing partnerships so important to the establishment of the productive chain of cinema. I'm Sandra Sergio. I am coordinator of special projects of UEI, which is an international entity just like UNICEF, UNESCO, and PNUD. We work for science, education, culture, and in culture we have been working at all sides of creative economy, promoting a well-established program called Hyper Creative Young People. It is a program that has 4 axes: one of training, the other one access to culture, networking, and development of new businesses. When we talk about creative economy, one of the major industries is cinema and audiovisual industries. Therefore, this support and financial aid for the sector also bring financial resources. It is important to develop activities together in collaboration. Last year, we developed a study, we carried out a study, and later on you have it available, that talks about the internationalization of Brazilian audiovisual. It was developed with us and CEPAL. It is important for you to know it talks about internationalization and the promotion of it by means of bilateral agreements and multilateral agreements and cooperation projects that are important to our industry. And on top of that, the hyper creative young people has worked towards joint projects. Our major effort is to support professional training, and we have tried to include vulnerable, socially vulnerable people, which is the main goal, from 18 to 30 years of age, within these 4 axes. Last year, we had a call for bidding for original screenwritings. It was wonderful to have young people and screenwriters that had never had access to market before. And together with the Brazilian Association of Audiovisual, it was incredible to do it. And we hope this year we're able to do the 2nd edition, and also for other areas of the productive sector of audiovisual. And now that I briefly talked about us, I have here Fabiana, who is our partner and comes from Roberto Marinho Foundation. And she has she's a head of Coliga. Now, just to have an idea of what Coliga is, I'm going to pass the floor now to Fabiana. We have a lot of opportunity to develop training courses. I heard people talking about promoting free courses. It is a market that demands professionals be skilled and qualified the whole time. Creative economics, a school like Coliga is always open to innovation and productions, and by offering courses that will enhance courses and networking. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's already past, well, she says, good morning. I'm Fabiana. I work at Roberto Marinho Foundation. I'd like to greet everyone here in the panel, especially Fabiana. I work at Roberto Marinho Foundation and Cultura TV channel. I coordinated the whole project, which dealt with the extermination of Black population. And I'm here to talk a little bit about Coliga, which has to do with what was discussed here, the possibility of offering a free of charge school that offers 36 courses currently. We want to expand it to offer even more courses, 33 free of charge courses. And it is important to say that Coliga wants to connect different types of young people and also connect with the labor market in terms of creative construction. It's not a platform that only offers courses but connects with the labor market. By working with young people, we understood that we should provide more than courses. We needed to have this market connection. We have this big networking work. We understand that the difference is at the extremes. if we want to talk about socioeconomic vulnerability, we need to have everybody working together. So it is an invitation to establish a partnership network. There was a lot to talk about and think about. Digital. It's important to know what a project is all about, to know that we have this open course on photography. We're generating opportunities so that the young people get into the workforce and compete to get out of this of their niche. We want to integrate diversity within Coliga and the opportunities that we connect. Well, this is it. I hope you get to know us better. And we want to be more and more be connected, and some add efforts in productive and creative production for the young Brazilian people. And why not the Portuguese young community, always thinking about connecting young people from all over the world. Thank you. Well, thank you again, people from EIO and Roberto Marinho Foundation and our panel members. We'll be back at 2 p.m. Thank you all for being here and our panel members.